So it's been a couple days since we've seen you, but I wanted to bring this up real quick. We were at a family wedding not too long ago, and I just want to give a shout out to Trey's dance moves. I mean, they
Whoa.
are phenomenal. I think I got some videos, so if we want to, put this on on the podcast, I think there'd be we have a shift from leadership discussions to like dance move instruction.
Well, let me tell you something about those dance moves. Okay. They were taken to another level at one point in the evening when a friend of, right. So this was Kim's second child, her oldest daughter in Lexington, Kentucky, right? And we're at the castle. We're at the Kentucky castle and the dance is happening. And you guys, you know what we were trying to make sure Dad did not do on the dance floor.
Well, I was trying to make sure he did do it.
That no,
Well, we were on
him to do
opposite.
that.
I was trying to include Grandpa.
No, we were on opposite sides of that fence then.
No. Grandpa needs to keep his shirt buttoned.
Yep.
He needs to keep his tie around the collar, not tied over his forehead, whatever the case may be. All right. So at one point during the evening, one of Kim's friends says, well, it looks like you didn't get all the dance moves that your dad and your brother have. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, apparently you missed out on the dancing thing. And I took that as a direct challenge.
Well,
the rest of the night, I did. I took that as a direct challenge.
I was a proud dancing brother.
I'm glad you said that because I was really kind of thinking that the next time I feel challenged like that, I need to resist. Because
just shirt on, you'll be fine. Just keep
I left my shirt on. There is no doubt about that. So let's make sure there are no questions about the groove, the moving and grooving did not get to the point where my shirt had to get unbuttoned. Anyway, thanks a lot, Todd. Appreciate you bringing that up. Appreciate you bringing it up. Hey, and speaking of dancing, I want to make the claim, Trent, maybe you're the one that didn't get the dance moves.
No, I did not get the dance moves. I can assure that it was not passed. Now, I will admit, though, I remember growing up and watching you go to dance lessons, and I have not had the dance lessons that you have.
That is true. That is true. Your mom and I, we went to some ballroom dance lessons. We've done some line dance lessons. And of course, growing up doing the polka dances through our childhood, it's important stuff, fun stuff. So we're not here to talk about dancing or dance moves. I hope not anyway.
We're not.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Trenton, you did you hit the dance floor though?
Yeah, I was out there for a little bit.
So this is segue. Okay, we're segue. So you had to have some courage because you were doing something that you weren't very comfortable with. You didn't. You felt like you weren't very good at it, but you did it. You did it anyways. And I think a lot of times, like as leaders, like we're always in that position. Like we know we've never taken a dance class. I told people all the time when I was the athletic director, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing my best. I'm trying to learn as I go. And I told a coach one time that, they asked me some questions and I gave some advice and I said, but here's what you got to keep in mind. Leadership is always messy. It's just always messy and there's no straight line. And you keep dancing. You just keep dancing, man. You hit the dance floor and you dance. You dance and you find out what you learned. So
yeah.
There's our segue into leadership or, what, but we did have some good conversations pre-hit record on some stuff. And, I don't know if I want to just bring out what I talked about or Trent, what you talked about. But, one of the things that's been on my heart is like, I'm former AD, former head coach, former, doing stuff my way, kind of, leading the way. And now I'm in a volunteer role and I love it. And the coaches are doing a great job, but I'm super impressed with them. Interesting happened last week, maybe a week and a half ago. We were coaching up the kids, hard. It's a summer workouts. We got a lot of install. We got a lot of demands. We're coaching them up hard. And a coach put out a question, hey, we've been coaching these kids hard and they're not really responding well. Should we look at maybe doing things a little bit different? And I thought that was awesome that the question was even asked, because that's great reflection. That's great. That's where growth happens. I think, you're leading blind so many times, but the questions that you ask yourself are so key. But I had a lot of thoughts. I had a lot of thoughts, and I was presenting to kids that actual day, and it was about how fear of failure and fear of judgment can affect you as an athlete, what gets stolen from you, and how it can affect you. And that question about the coaching kind of just clicked in my mind. Like, I think that's so relevant to coaches and leaders as well. If you're leading a district, or how does the fear of failure and fear of judgment affect me? And then I'm also reading this Christian book. We all have a profession of faith, and it's a very strong part of what, how we lead, about how when we experience those things, we retreat to caves. And the book I'm reading named the caves, the different caves. And I just thought, man, that it was such good stuff that any leader, I think, could grow from. And so it's kind of like put me on a trajectory of, man, I want to talk to people, to leaders about this, because we can't lead. I don't believe so. My theme is like, we can't lead someone out of a cave if we're in the same cave with them. Like, we're going to go nowhere. It's going to be a lot of just screaming, demanding, and no one's leaving a cave. So that's been something that's been on my heart, in the last week and a half. And it's really just kind of put me on a trajectory of what I want to talk to people about.
So,
Well, if I might jump in there, one thing that I think about is, there's a little bit about me that doesn't mind if people look at me and chuckle or laugh or think some thought, like, I don't care what people think about me, to be completely honest. But 5 years ago, I got married, and I really care about what they think about my wife. And I heard Matt Rule talk about this in one of his podcasts, and then I kind of lived it last year. Is Matt Rule talks about, he's always taken over. He's head football coach for Nebraska. He's always taken over some programs that are down and out. And when he was with the Carolina Panthers, he never really got success in Carolina, got fired and all those pieces. But when he'd go through the tunnel, he'd always get booed. And there was a day, no big deal. He's a coach. If you're not winning games, that's what's going to happen. Who cares if they're booing me? But there was a day where he realized that they weren't booing him anymore. They were booing his wife and kids. And that mattered. Doesn't matter if they boo me, but when they start booing your family. And I lived that a little bit this past year. There were fans that they would be yelling and staring at my wife. They wouldn't be staring at the field. They wouldn't be staring at me down there. They'd be looking at her and yelling their whatever thoughts were on their mind. Their boos, essentially.
Yeah.
And so when I think about that fear of failure, that fear of judgment, to me, the fear isn't even the fear of my own judgment. It's the fear of the residual effect hitting my family. I mean,
thanks for sharing that first, Trenton. I mean, that's that's hard to manage in your heart. So where does that move you? Like in your like when you're leading, know it, that fear that's really weird, really real and intense. How does it affect you in your leadership, or how has it, or how did it?
That makes me think of the coffee bean, the book or the story or whatever. Like, you put a carrot in boiling water, an egg in boiling water, or a coffee bean in boiling water. Carrot gets soft and weak. The egg gets hardened and, essentially, and human bitter. And then the coffee bean transforms. I don't think I was ready for that moment. And for me personally, I think I got hardened and bitter there for a little bit. So how did I respond or react? I don't think I didn't handle myself or that emotion very well in that moment.
So Todd, when you talk about those caves, that like we respond, or you think about leaders responding to fear, right? And the public scrutiny of our family members is one of those particular fears. Like when Todd talks about like the softening or weakening, like the carrot, and then the hardening anger response of the egg, which cave? I mean, like, is that fitting kind of some of the metaphors that you're thinking about with the caves?
Oh, for sure. And I think, you could probably give the caves a lot of, but he named his cave. His cave was bitterness. And so the most important characteristic of a leader is self-awareness. And it's not just, oh, I got bitter. It's knowing what made me bitter, and here's how it is affecting my leadership. Here's what is leaking out of me. Yeah, I'm bitter. Okay, that's great self-awareness, but the deeper self-awareness is like, here's how it's affecting my leadership, and here's how it's affecting the words and the calling out of kids. This was something else I thought of. Like, you've been in that cave. You felt it. You've lived in that space. You will recognize now athletes that are living in that same exact bitterness cave. So when you are able to get yourself out of that cave, like, you now have the ability to challenge and call kids out of that cave. And what happens is you lead differently then. You're not leading them to challenge them. No, oh, I see they're in a cave. They're not just lazy. They're not lazy at all, man. They're in a cave of bitterness. How can I call? I know I've lived in that cave. I know now. You know better than anybody how to move somebody out of that cave of bitterness. And one of the things that I'm like talk with coaches about is, like, old school coaching is like, you just coach the gang, and there's an expectation. Here's how I coach. But coaching these days, and I don't care if you don't like it. That's irrelevant. If you don't like that, coaching today is different. That doesn't matter. It just is.
Right.
It just is. So we got to coach individuals to move the gang. And so when you recognize someone that's in a cave, like you will now, can't give him the same or her the same prescription of excellence until I get them out of the cave.
Yeah.
Until I help them out.
Well, and Todd, I think it's important to point out that, I mean, we're not just talking about coaching. We're talking about leadership. I mean, the models of leadership that were considered effective and impactful, much like the models or styles of coaching that were impactful decades ago. I mean, it's changing. It's a place. We're not just leading, telling people what to do. It has so much more to do with how we're connecting with them as human beings, and how we're paying attention to, and I would say even, these caves, or these ideas of caves, or how do we help people overcome those fears, and even the stories that people are telling themselves that create those fears, right? Because if we're experiencing fear, there's some narrative going on inside our head. And there's this process when we're coaching kids or leading adults, that there's a big part of what's new leadership is really about how do we connect with them, and how do we help other people become the best version of themselves.
Yeah. And if we want other people to be the best version of themselves, that means we've got to continually be the best version of ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Which means now we can't make it. The best version of me doesn't have a finish line, because if I'm only as good as I am today, tomorrow, then that's not actually the best version of myself, because the best version of myself gets better.
You want some evidence of that, Trenton? I'll raise my hand to evidence of that, because I'm still messing up. and still like, I did that again? Holy cow, what's going on? So that is so much wisdom in what you just said, Trenton. So much wisdom in that. And I had a thought, and now there's another. It's gone. My thought is gone. So
okay. So Todd, I'm going to bring it back to you, and I don't know if this is going to connect to the thought that you had with that.
Hopefully it will. It was a great one.
The thing that really kind of got us started in here is this. My gosh, we get so much of our potential stolen from us when we let fear be the loudest voice in our head. When we're afraid, there's this natural tendency to withdraw or hide, or like Trent, what you said, or we get angry and we lash out at the world. And when we've withdrawn and become soft, like the carrot, or we've gotten angry and lashed out, we're not the best version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And how can we expect people to respond well to us or even follow us if we're not bringing the best us to the room?
So true. And so I did think of my thought. We're talking about being the best version of ourselves for others, and not just for myself. And so for me, one of the like big things is like the posture of my heart. Where is the posture of my heart? And we've talked about our faith, that together, that we have a strong faith, but for us, the posture of our heart is really moved by our posture to our faith and a greater hope beyond the leadership that is right in front of us. Like there's a greater hope for us, so that we have the ability to that. And Trent, you asked an interesting question at the beginning of before we hit record, and how can we live out our faith in a public education? And that's a great question. In my 33 years, I wrestled with that all the time. And where I just continually landed on it was, I just want to live it out. I want people to recognize God in me, my faith in me, and recognize that faith and that heart posture, and where that heart, and then when they ask, and I literally had someone talk to me this morning, a coach and he says great things to me, and I'm like, look, I'm so glad that you recognize the God, the Holy Spirit in me, and is not me, dude, is not me. So I think what gives us just that greater hope in our leadership is being called out of the cave by our faith, and what informs us to a bigger hope that there is no finish line in our leadership and in what we're doing. There's no finish line. We're serving and loving.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if you've noticed this on my coffee mug, right? It's Joshua 1:9. It's Trent, it's your mom's favorite Bible verse. And my really unorthodox maybe paraphrase is, how many times do I have to tell you? I'm with you. Do not be afraid. Be strong. Be courageous. Do not cower back in a cave, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not the fear that I want you to hear. It's my presence that I want you to feel and know that I'm with you, so that you can step forward with strength and courage in that place.
And like that makes me think it, and I get my names mixed up. So what was it? Was it Elijah and the fire from heaven that burned the altar and everything around it? Is that right?
I'm gonna say yes.
You're gonna
I'm
put
gonna
us on the spot here,
I get,
Trent.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know.
we're
I'm
gonna
putting
have to
all the
check
time
that out.
Bible study,
But
like, no, Todd, that's not Abraham. No, I'm like, oh,
and I mix up the names, but like before this happened, I mean, prophet of God, hears the voice of God, brings the word. He goes out and hiding because he's gonna get, basically his life has been threatened. And so he's out and hiding. And one of the things that happens to him is basically he cries out to God and goes, "Why have you left me alone?"
Mm.
And it's not, why did God leave me alone? But it's, why am I by myself? Like, why do I not have this? Like, he was backed in a cave and felt like he was alone. And that wasn't alone apart from God. That was just like, where's the other Christians? Where's the other people that believe in you? Like, why am I the only one here? And I feel like a lot of times in leadership and just really in life is like the devil tries to back you in a corner, put you in a cave and make you feel alone. And I don't know. I feel like I had another point to go off of that, but something Todd said kind of made me think of that. Like, we're pushed to feel alone, and we're not. I mean, we shouldn't be.
Yeah. And I think there's even a parallel of our walk in faith and our life as leaders, that in leadership we can feel alone and isolated. In our faith, even after great faith victories that we experience, if we're not careful, we can feel alone. And it's important, I think, to maintain the habits or develop the habits. And I know we talked about small, consistent actions. Those small, consistent actions or those habits that we can maintain where we stay connected. And whether it's a spiritual connection with God or a human connection with other people, there are things that we can do to ensure that we are constantly reminded that we're not alone. If we run to our cave, we're going to feel alone. But if we keep stepping out of the cave and doing things very specifically, we can continue to feel the connection with other people and with God.
So good. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes that I look back at, I say it's so good because, looking back, I can think when the habit carried me rather than the feeling of connection. And then it ended up renewing me. So I carried on the practice out of faith, but not feeling it all the time. But realizing that he was there the whole time, and so it is good. The practice does matter. It does matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, Todd, if I can call those moments kind of like our desert experiences, right? When we're walking and we feel like we're in the wilderness by ourselves. I think that there's some real opportunities in those times, because if our faith walk, like anything we do in life, if it's always easy, we never really develop the habits that stick and the habits that make the biggest difference in the long run. I mean, if it's always easy, our strength stays small, right? We test our muscles in the weight room. And if we never strain the muscle and tear the muscle down, it will never get larger and grow stronger. And I think our faith and our leadership impact really kind of follow that same model.
And that makes me think of something I say as a coach a lot. I mean, I tell players all the time, if it was easy, everyone would do it. We have 150 boys in our high school, or a little bit more than that. Why aren't there 150 on the football team? If it was easy, they'd all be there. Not
Right.
easy, it's worth it.
Right.
I mean, it.
Yeah.
So Todd, I'm a little curious when the coaching staff is thinking about, getting to the end of the summer and kind of the grind with the players and some things of this nature, like where would you guess the staff is going in terms of doing something different possibly?
I think, that's a good question, and I don't have the answer to that. I know there's been talk, again, as a volunteer, my role is different. There's been talk about having a sit down as a staff and answering the question, who is it that we want to be as a staff? But that's not a natural thing to do. And so I don't want to bring that as my voice to them, if that conversation happens, that it's more of an authentic kind of thing. But I think there's value in answering that question, like, as a group of leaders, who is it that we want to be, and recognizing that how we do things matters and how we coach individually matters, and just acknowledging that. And they are doing that. They are doing that, on a different parceled way. So I'm not condemning it in any way. If someone from the staff were to listen to this, I'm not saying they're doing it wrong, but I know that there is a different way that it could happen. Kind of like what we did with the kids. We created these core values with the kids. That can happen with leadership teams as well. Who is it? Answering the question, who is it that we want to be, is an important question to ask and answer.
Well, and Todd, I mean, you talk about, or well, you even said it's not the normal path. I think it's one of the first most important questions for any leader in any circumstance. And actually, when I use the word leader, I would suggest that that's pretty much all encompassing, because anybody who has any kind of influence in any situation is a leader. And guess who has influence on any situation at any given time? Every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Every room we walk into, no matter what our official role is, we have influence and impact on what's going to happen in that room with those people in that room. And I think a lot of people, oh my goodness gracious, we were talking about the best version of ourselves, right? As a person of faith, I believe we were all created in God's image, which means that within every single one of us is greatness. Greatness, I mean, is the label I use. You can call it success or the best version of ourselves or whatever the case may be. If we don't take the time to reflect about who it is we are and who it is we're supposed to be, then we'll never realize our full potential, right? We'll continue to operate from a cave, not even knowing that we're in the cave, not even knowing that it's the wrong place.
And with that, like, we don't always recognize what we are to other people, or maybe how we come across to other people. Because I think in leadership, we have to know whose we are. And I think we have to know who we are, or who we want to be. at the very least, my first year as a head football coach. I thought I was an upbeat, enthusiastic, and positive head football coach. And I thought that's what I brought to my team. And one day I had a kid walk in my office and say, Coach Mo, why do you just yell all the time? And I was like, what? I don't yell all the time. And then the next practice, of course, I caught myself just yelling the whole time. I thought I was enthusiastic and bringing the energy, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who I was being. That's not how I was coming across. I was coming across as a guy that just yells all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And talk about, you just talking about one at any given moment can be a leader. Oh, there's a kid that walked into my office. Talk about courage. I mean, holy cow, stepping into your head football coach's office. And, why do you just yell all the time? You know what? You're right. That's not who I want to be. That's not who I've been called to be.
Right.
And that kid, was I perfect the next day? Heck no. Was I perfect the rest of the season? No. I'm sure I yelled plenty. But was I aware that that's not who I want to be or how I want to coach? And was I better for it? Absolutely.
Right. Right.
That's awesome. I'm awesome in this way, that I love the posture of your heart, because you could receive that with a stiff arm.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a lot of leaders receive that kind of stuff with a stiff arm and not change and not grow. And what you have just done is put yourself on a trajectory of becoming that person that you want to be, the continuous growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And kind of back to, the comment about making sure we figure out who we want to be, like just starting the journey. I mean, you're starting that journey of becoming, like you said, Todd, it's becoming. And if we don't clarify who it is, we don't know the direction, who it is we want to be. We don't know what direction we want to move in. And then the vulnerability to accept feedback about how others around us are actually experiencing us. And is it being received the way we hope it is? Is it having the impact that we hope it is? Yeah, it takes a lot of courage, like you said, Todd, and a lot of vulnerability in that space. And unfortunately, I think, to your point, Todd, when you said it's not really all that common, I think it's not, because I think it may be uncommon because people don't want to admit that they're not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So true. So true. So if we were to wrap this up,
Yeah.
that, the importance of a leader being aware that they've retreated to a cave, it's huge. It's huge. Knowing that you're in a cave, I think you need to have the contrast of who is it I want to be and who is it I'm being. What am I living out, and who is it who I want to be? And know that contrast and being receptive to feedback, 360 feedback from anybody, creating the environment that people will. And maybe we'll talk about that next time. How do we create that environment? And then moving out of that space and the cave, so that we can help others when we see them struggling in their life. And I think that's great leadership, because what that does is it creates trust. The kid trusted you. That's why he had courage. He trusted that you would receive it. Otherwise, if he didn't believe that or trust it, he wouldn't have come in. So there was a posture of your heart that was present to him, regardless of the yelling. And that's evidence, I believe, of your faith, and that's you living it out. So as leaders, let's just keep doing it, calling ourselves out of the cave so we can call others out, keep growing.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing about that, Todd, is that sometimes we get backed into our cave and we think we're the only ones that are backed in. And we got to learn how to respond to our fear by testing it to see if it's right. Because in most cases, that fear is not right. When we test it and put ourselves out there, we realize that there are those people who need our courage, and they need our stepping out in that space, because they're in a cave too. So many people are in a cave and just need a little help to get out of that cave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have, I think I'll listen to this one again. This was really.
So are we supposed to find a question?
You mean while we're still talking, do we find a question? What's the cave you're trying to get out of, or
call someone else out of?
There's lots of that. Yeah, there could be 100 questions. The 100 question episode. Take your pick.
What's your Lazarus? Wait, sorry.
What'd you say?
I said, what's your Lazarus? What are you? What are you calling out or needing to be called out?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Bring something dead back to life.
What could you accomplish if fear wasn't holding you back?
Can I add a side note?
Yeah.
What can you, your question, what can you accomplish when you know you've already succeeded? My first year as a head football coach, I felt like a failure and a loser. And of all things, I went to a football conference and there was a whole FCA thing. And I realized there's nothing I could ever do to lose. It's already won. So what was that question? What would you do if you knew you already succeeded?
Mm.
Is that what you said? Sorry, I know I kind of went on tangent.
Yeah,
And then we could talk for another 20 minutes because of that.
What could you do if you knew success was guaranteed? Maybe is another way to say it.
And it is.
Yeah.
And I'll add right there, it is.
And I even think of another place like where you were going, Trent, with the lives that you can possibly impact. Who can you help if you act in spite of the fear?
Yep.
Actually, isn't that what courage is? Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting in spite of the fear.
Yep.
Maybe even because of the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, guys, I tell you what, it was great visiting with you today. As is always the case, so many unpredictable places our conversation might go. Even when we thought we were predicting where the conversation might go before the conversation, it still didn't go there. So who knows? Who knows where we take any of the conversations that we have together?
Yep.
Yeah.
Loved
sure.
it. Loved it.
Yeah.
Great
All right,
to talk
guys.
to you guys.
See you guys. Love you guys.
Talk to you. Love you. Love you too.